You're watching a video on advancing energy democracy from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. This video complements the NAACP Just Energy Toolkit segment on community-owned clean energy. It begins with an interview at the site of a community solar project in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm standing here on the roof of Shiloh Temple in North Minneapolis, surrounded by solar panels. We're just about 2 miles from downtown. It's a beautiful sunny spring day, and the solar panels on this roof here are enough to power about 50 to 60 energy efficient homes. It's a different kind of solar array than we normally have in the sense that it doesn't just serve the building below, but it also serves over 20 households who have subscribed as members of this community solar array. With me is Timothy Denherter-Thomas. He's the general manager of Cooperative Energy Futures, which is the developer of this project. I'd like you to just describe for a little bit how this project differs from most community solar projects in terms of its size, its location, but also the level of ownership of its participants.
Sure. So about 90% of community solar here in Minnesota is serving commercial and industrial customers, so it's not serving residents at all. Of the remaining 10% that is serving residential customers, basically all of the other developers that are out there are using a minimum credit score, usually either 680 or 700, as the minimum for who can participate. That essentially means that most low-income families, as well as statistically most people of color, are excluded from participating in community solar. This community solar garden, as well as the other community solar gardens that we develop as Cooperative Energy Futures, are different because we don't use a minimum credit score. That means that everyone can actually participate. We're really developing community solar here at Shiloh Temple and the other gardens that we develop as a way to create a clean energy asset here in the community that's benefiting the people that use it.
Timothy, I know one other thing that you've done with this project that's relatively unique is around training and hiring, so that you had a commitment when we talked previously to train and hire folks in the local community to do this installation. Can you tell me a little bit more about why that was important to you in developing this project and then how that turned out?
Yeah, we've seen a really big expansion of the solar industry, but so far most of those jobs have not been benefiting people of color and low-income people. We see a lot of racial disparities in the workforce around solar, and that's a huge piece of what we want to address as we develop these community solar gardens with a justice lens. And so we required our installation contractor to use at least 50% minority labor, including a number of folks from here in North Minneapolis. We have also partnered with a training program to help build people's skills in the solar industry so that more people are qualified for those jobs as we create demand for the hiring.
Cooperative Energy Futures is the only cooperatively owned community solar developer in Minnesota, the nation's leading community solar market. The Shiloh Temple Community Solar Project went live in May 2018, and the Ramp A project will be under construction later in 2018. Both projects provide powerful reminders of how the right policy enables energy customers to choose how they spend their energy dollars. Minnesota is just one of 16 states with policies enabling the sharing of electricity. Most policies, like Minnesota's, are specific to solar. Community wind projects, for example, aren't usually covered. At ilsr.org, there are recommendations about well-designed state community renewable energy policies. In states without explicit policies to support community renewable energy, the work to capture this local energy is harder, but no less rewarding. Willing utilities, particularly rural electric cooperatives and municipal city-owned utilities, have made community solar possible without state laws. This map shows how cooperative and public power utilities have been offering community solar programs across the country. Community renewable energy projects are an essential tool for allowing broader participation in the clean energy economy, but they're not the only thing. We're going to discuss 3 key approaches toward a clean, local, equitable, affordable, and reliable energy economy. ILSR's Community Power Toolkit is an interactive way to browse the policies and practices communities have successfully adopted to advance energy democracy. It shows examples of policies, success stories, and illustrations of impact. We'll start with a tour of how we can power up at the neighborhood level by discussing solar buying cooperatives. These come in many flavors, including city-led campaigns, but we'll talk specifically about Solar United Neighbors, a network of buying cooperatives that started with the Mount Pleasant Solar Cooperative in Washington, D.C. The solar cooperatives of Solar United Neighbors have had a big impact for members and others. Over 10,000 households are part of 80 solar co-ops across 10 states. The co-ops have collectively installed nearly 20 megawatts of solar, often at a significant discount to going it alone. And co-op members are helping everyone by defending solar rights through advocacy in West Virginia, Ohio, Florida, and Washington, D.C. Let's talk about shifting how utilities support local energy. Let's learn what some of the various utilities have done to promote energy democracy, starting with Farmers Electric Cooperative and its promotion of local solar in Iowa.
Our vision was to not only reduce power bills, but to keep the money in the community. So solar has allowed us to buy local. Yeah, that's from local producers, basically. Our model's based around that. So I think, some of the rationale was, one, we make it easy to do. And like the electric car, I think people see it as the future, basically, in technology. And yeah, if you make it easy, I think they're going to grab a hold of it. Yeah. It's been very, very popular with our customers. Yeah, you set a vision early on, and then you're seeing it happen. It's flourishing. There are skeptical people in all this, and then when the skeptics come in and put solar in, that's when you have that aha moment, right? So it's making it work and training people that it can work.
Next, let's talk about inclusive energy financing, a way that utilities can share their expertise and their resources to help customers reduce energy use and costs, without requiring them to provide money up front.
What if your home could be fixed up so that you're cool in the middle of summer and nice and warm in the dead of winter, and you have more money every year for things you need? Your electric utility can make it possible. Here's how. First, they send a certified contractor to your home to see what energy efficiency improvements can be made to lower your electric bill. Then, your utility pays for improvements like replacing old energy-guzzling equipment and sealing up your home or apartment against the heat and cold. You end up with a more comfy and healthy home, and your electric bill goes down because you're not using as much energy. The utility recovers its costs for the upgrades through a charge on your bill, but the charge is less than the savings, so your bill is still lower. There are no loans, no credit checks, and no debt, and everyone can participate, even if you rent instead of own your place. If you move, the charges and the savings simply apply to the next folks moving in. Easy, right? It's called Pay As You Save. It's an on-bill financing model, and it's catching on with electric cooperatives leading the way. Call your electric utility today to ask if they provide home energy efficiency improvements financed on your electric bill. And if they don't, let them know it's time to start.
Electric utilities can also promote community solar gardens, as we talked about earlier, or help create the infrastructure for electric vehicles, which helps customers reduce their costs of fueling up. Fuel savings from switching to electric cars are well over $1,000 per year in every state, and electric vehicles eliminate local pollution from cars. You can read more about this in our 2017 report, Choosing the Electric Avenue. Utilities can help promote electric vehicles in several ways, including by using inclusive energy finance to help transit agencies buy electric buses, spreading the benefits to everyone. They can provide affordable public chargers for those without off-street parking, as done by Austin Energy in Texas. And utilities can also provide cheap charging when there's low demand, as these utilities have done, through offering very low-cost charging during nighttime hours. Getting utilities to do the right thing isn't always easy, but advocates can apply pressure in several ways. Direct action can sometimes embarrass or motivate a utility to change behavior. With public utilities or cooperatives, it's possible to lobby the city council or the board of directors that oversees the utility, or for a customer to even run for that office. For shareholder-owned utilities, those big ones that typically serve large cities, State regulators, usually called public utilities or public service commissions, will take comments from the public on energy policy decisions. Finally, let's look at the wealth of options for building local power through your city government. Although there's plenty to pick from, we'll talk about two options, one that's a relatively small lift and one that's bigger. The first one is getting solar installed on public buildings, a way to share the economic benefits of going solar with everyone. Every dollar saved on a city electric bill is a dollar that can be spent on libraries or workforce opportunities. In a report a couple of years ago called Public Rooftop Revolution, ILSR found that in the 200 largest U.S. cities, there was an opportunity to install solar power enough to power 1 million homes using just the rooftops of public buildings. For that report, we interviewed city officials from several cities about their efforts. Here's a clip from our Local Energy Rules podcast interview with Jason Caudle, the city manager, about their efforts to promote local solar.
Our first project we did was with Solar City, and it was a behind the meter, very standard PPA. We'll buy the energy from you, and you own the facility. We then, as we went through that process, realized it really wasn't that complicated and really wasn't that difficult. It was more a story of financing than it was a story of engineering or construction. And what we were able to do was take tax-exempt municipal financing, procure the energy on behalf of the schools, and then sell it back to the schools. So the schools weren't in the business of building things or generating electricity. The city could be, and the city was interested. So we kind of stepped in there and said, no, let us, we understand this a little better than you do. We know how to do this. Let us take that risk. Let us move that ball forward for you. And we did, and it was successful at the end of the day.
Cities don't have to stop with their own property. They can also use their power to take over the utility company. In 7 states, they can do this with a policy called community choice aggregation. In this case, the incumbent utility stays in the picture as the deliverer of electricity between the suppliers the city picks and the customers. In this interview with Dawn Weiss of Marin Clean Energy, you can hear more about the efforts to create a local energy supply company.
We've been able to achieve many of the goals that we set out and actually even exceed many of the goals that we set out as far as getting more renewable energy onto the grid and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And we've been able to do that by purchasing more than double the amount of renewable energy that customers were getting before and offering rates that are competitive and in most cases lower for customers than what they would have been paying with the incumbent utility.
Now, speaking of your success, many incumbent utilities like PG&E say that it will be costly or technically challenging or prohibitive or both to offer a high percentage of renewable energy to their customers. How can Marin Clean Energy offer, as I read it, a minimum of 50% renewable energy and then an option for 100% renewable for just a penny more per kilowatt hour?
Well, we're able to offer competitively priced renewable energy because we have a low operating costs. We are a small and nimble shop here in the community. Another key factor is that we don't have shareholder profit to account for. Any revenue that comes into the agency is used to keep rates low or to help fund other local programs that benefit the community, like solar rebate programs for low-income individuals, energy efficiency programs, electric vehicle charging, that sort of thing.
While most states do not provide the option of community choice aggregation, cities do retain the authority to take over the utility completely. Municipalization, as it's called, involves making decisions about where to buy the power and delivering the power by buying the existing utilities' poles and wires, and sometimes even power plants. In this interview with Susan Osborne, the mayor of Boulder, Colorado, she describes how the city's long efforts to increase local renewable energy finally resulted in the city looking to take over the utility company.
We've asked them to give us some proposals of how we might work with them in a different sort of way in the future. We haven't gotten anything back from them, and we're hoping we will.
I have to quote from the Boulder Daily Camera story that I found. They highlighted 5 key points from the report, and I think they're worth mentioning in the context of where Boulder's trying to go. That one, it could offer lower rates over a 20-year time frame. A municipal utility could maintain or exceed current levels of reliability.
reduce greenhouse gas emissions by more than 50% from current levels and exceed the Kyoto goals within the first year, get 54% or more of its power from renewable resources, and essentially create a model public utility that it would allow for innovation in everything from energy efficiency to customer service.
Thank you for watching this 3-part video module on advancing energy democracy from the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. For more information on the specific strategies we discussed and more, check out ILSR's interactive Community Power Toolkit, as well as excellent toolkits from the NAACP and Meister Consultants. To better understand how state policy helps or hinders energy democracy in your community, see ILSR's Community Power Map. You can keep up with local energy democracy efforts across the country by subscribing to ILSR's Local Energy Rules podcast or our weekly energy newsletter at ilsr.org. Thanks again, and keep your energy local.